The web of lies. Jacob Cole had always believed in hard work, love, and loyalty. For over 20 years, he poured his heart and soul into his marriage to Lena and their 3 beautiful children, Emma, Alex, and Sophia. To Jacob, his family was his universe, the reason he pushed through grueling shifts at the steel factory and took on every extra hour he could. Their modest suburban home and their peaceful life were the fruits of his sacrifice. But the universe has a way of concealing darkness behind the brightest stars. And Jacob's seemingly perfect world was about to implode. It started as an innocent observation during a family barbecue. His younger brother, Eric, chuckled as he watched Alex, the middle child, sprint across the yard. "Man, where'd he get that red hair?" Eric joked, nudging Jacob. "Doesn't run in our family." Jacob laughed it off. But as the days passed, the comments stuck with him. None of the kids really looked like him. Emma had bright blue eyes, Alex's fiery hair was impossible to ignore, and even little Sophia, with her dark curls, bore no resemblance to his or Lena's side of the family. One night, as he tucked Sophia into bed, Jacob studied her features. The way her nose curved, the shape of her chin, it was as if he were looking at a stranger's child. He shook the thought away, chastising himself for doubting. Months later, Jacob found himself working late, as always. His phone buzzed with a notification and a group message with Lena and a few neighbors. As he scrolled through, his eyes caught a name he hadn't seen before, Mark. "Thanks for the help with the kids, Mark. Couldn't have done it without you." Smiling face with smiling eyes, Lena had written. It seemed harmless enough, but the smiley face unsettled him. Who was Mark? And why hadn't Lena mentioned him? Jacob decided not to bring it up, but a seed of unease had been planted. One rainy afternoon, Jacob returned home early from work, a rare day off due to a power outage at the factory. The house was eerily quiet. Expecting to find Lena in the kitchen or the kids in the living room, he instead heard hushed voices coming from their bedroom. Heart pounding, Jacob crept up the stairs. The door was ajar, and he saw Lena sitting on the bed, her phone pressed to her ear. "He's getting suspicious," she whispered. "No, he doesn't know anything. I've kept it hidden this long, he won't find out now." Jacob's blood ran cold. He backed away, careful not to make a sound. His heart raced as he realized that Lena was hiding something big. That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. He waited until Lena drifted off, then took her phone from the nightstand. Unlocking it, he scrolled through her messages, finding an ongoing conversation with Mark. The texts were filled with flirtations, intimate exchanges, and references to the kids. One message stood out. "You know Jacob's not their father, right? You don't owe him anything." Jacob's hands shook as he read it again and again. He felt like the ground had been ripped out from beneath him. Unable to contain his suspicion, Jacob decided to get answers. He took DNA samples from the children, a hairbrush, a toothbrush, and a scrap of tissue. He sent them to a private lab, hoping against hope that he was wrong. When the results arrived 2 weeks later, Jacob couldn't bring himself to open the envelope. But he had to know. With trembling hands, he unfolded the papers and read the words that would shatter his life. Emma, 0% probability of paternity. Alex, 0% probability of paternity. Sophia, 0% probability of paternity. Jacob dropped the papers, his vision blurring with tears. 20 years. 20 years of love, sacrifice, and devotion, only to discover that not one of the children he had raised was biologically his. That evening, Jacob waited for Lena to return from grocery shopping. The moment she walked through the door, he held the DNA results in front of her. "Explain this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, shaking with anger. Lena's face turned ghostly pale. "Jacob, I can explain. Don't lie to me, he roared, slamming the papers on the table. Whose children are they? Tears streamed down Lena's face as she confessed. Emma's father was an old college fling. Alex's father was a coworker from years ago. Sophia's father was Mark, the man Jacob had never even met until recently. I was scared, Jacob, Lena sobbed. You were always working, always gone. I made mistakes. But you've been the only real father they've ever known. Jacob stared at her, numb. The woman he had loved, the children he had cherished, they had all been built on lies. The divorce was swift and brutal. Lena begged for forgiveness, but Jacob was resolute. He sold the house, quit his job, and moved to a new city, leaving behind the life he had sacrificed so much for. The children reached out, confused and heartbroken. But Jacob couldn't bring himself to see them. They weren't his. Years later, Jacob found peace, though the scars remained. He had been betrayed, but he had also been freed. The man who had given everything to a lie now lived for himself, rebuilding a life rooted in truth. And though he would never forget the pain, Jacob learned the most important lesson of all: sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself.